are planning on what they're going to eat for Christmas dinner, for New Year's. But millions of families in America are actually wondering if there's going to be enough to eat. In fact, new Census Bureau data estimates that more than 21 million Americans did not have enough to eat in early December as pandemic relief payments dried up and grocery store prices have risen. So the number of households in which there were sometimes or often not enough to eat reached between 9.7% this month, a 5-month high, which says a lot for a pandemic that's supposedly at the tail end, maybe not. According to data collected between December 1st and 13th by the US Census Bureau's Household Pulse Survey, that figure in households with children sunk from 11% to 7.8% in August after the first child tax credit monthly payments went out. Maybe there's a correlation. Grocery store prices, of course, in the US are up 6.4% from a year earlier. Food banks are also seeing a rise in demand, and clinics meant to help malnourished and underfed children have seen an increase in patients. So I think a lot of us, especially last year, these are the dark days of the pandemic. I think that food banks were wonderfully paid a lot of attention to. There was a lot of, they were collecting a lot of donations. And yet a year later, when there is no more stimulus checks and the child tax credit, yes, has run out. In fact, we might be in a darker and more difficult place than we were a year ago when it comes to families being fed. Any reactions to that wonderful bit of holiday news, Brett?
I know, it's like I thought this was a Christmas party, and no, it's sad. I will say that there's a lot of, I don't know, we have a big opportunity in the wake of crises like this to continue the things we learned from them, or out of this weird psychological feeling of necessity, go back to the way it was beforehand, because this was just too hard. There were a lot of initiatives put into place during the Great Depression that in that era that still live on to today, augmented in the 60s and in early 70s, and we have an opportunity to do both or neither, or to do either one of those. And hopefully we take advantage and learn from what we learned to take care of people who are less fortunate and going through harder stuff. But it just, the incessant attempt to politicize every aspect of the pandemic and the response to it might result in us just going back to normal and saying, you know what, screw the poor.
I mean, and it's incredible since Biden ran on, especially towards the end there, maybe to lure Bernie voters over, maybe because he read the room and understood that this was his FDR, LBJ Great Society moment, that he wanted to be the most progressive president since FDR, that he wanted to embark on these kinds of plans. And this was obviously the week where Joe Manchin very simply and easily and predictably put a wrench in all of those plans. And it doesn't look like Biden has a fallback at this point to actually make good on that legacy or what he wanted to be his legacy. So more on the child tax credit. Again, there's been no extension of it. And just to refresh, the credit is an advance for, let's go to this. Oh no, that's not a graphic. But look at this. So this is where people spent money on the child tax credit. Did it all go to Christmas presents? Did it all go to Minecraft? No, it went 59% of parents use the advance payments for food. Second runner up, utilities, rent and mortgage, clothing, education costs. So it's very, very clear what people need this money for and why. We talked about debt a little bit earlier and how many people hold it. Sadly, in fact, a lot of people are using their child tax credits to pay off their debt. So for the majority of households making less than $50,000 a year, they're putting those payments towards their debt. An August survey by the Census Bureau found, and higher income families, no surprise, were more likely to be saving the money. Another report from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities found 91% of households making less than $35,000 a year use the money to pay for food, shelter, clothing, and other necessities. And Black and Hispanic families were more likely to use their credits on education-related costs, such as school supplies. I mean, and especially when schools have been closed up until a few months ago. So imagining, oh yeah, now I have to turn my home into a straight up learning environment in addition to putting food on the table. So just if there was any question, right, why we shouldn't means test this, whether or not child tax credits even work or not. This is from Columbia University right after, or who found out that making payments permanent, which is what the Build Back Better Act would extend them greatly, could reduce child poverty in the United States by 40%. And as proof of that, after credits went out in July, food insecurity in households with kids dropped from 11% to 8.4%. And we just went over how that's now flipping. So this is something that Joe Manchin wants to put in work requirements. One pretty amazing thing about these child tax credits is that you actually don't need to have a job. And so many people have been without work in order to receive them. So yes, once again, proof these things are popular, they work. Why are we letting them dry up?
Yes, people are saying that America has never been more divided. I can point at a handful of polls that show you that America has never been more united. But the things that each political party seeks to use to stay in power are the things that are dividing us. They would rather talk about critical race theory, which has no bearing on anyone's life. And oh my God, let's go to a school board meeting. That's how we help parents. No, this is a tax cut for parents. This is money. This is a tax cut. This is a child tax credit. They give you credit. This is a tax cut. And Republicans are not behind it.
100%.
That's all you need to know. There are two huge wins on the table for anyone who wants to scoop them up. Downside is you might have to part with some of your support from political donors. The first one is this. All right. The second one is Medicare drug price negotiations. Without that Medicare drug price negotiation, it is a tax on grandma and grandpa. Yep. You're taxing them. You're making them and me and you, because it's a government program. Those folks who are against negotiating Medicare drugs prices are for keeping taxes higher. Because the tax money goes into Medicare and we are spending twice as much as every other developed nation on healthcare. It's more efficient there, but it's still inefficient because there's millions of people.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.